Welcome back, everyone. You've sent in some really fascinating material, quite a bit focusing on personal finance, building wealth, and a lot drawing from Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah, it's clear that book resonates.
Definitely. So our mission here in this deep dive is really to pull out those actionable insights, maybe some surprising perspectives on, you know, getting ahead financially based on everything you shared.
And what really jumps out from these sources is that central conflict, right? The two dads.
Exactly.
You have the poor dad, Kiyosaki's own father, educated but, well, struggled financially.
Right. And then the rich dad, his friend's father, who is much more successful with money.
And that contrast gives us a really powerful way to look at our own ideas about money, doesn't it?
It really does. And one of the first things that struck me right at the start of the material is that simple difference in language.
The can't afford it thing?
Yes. The poor dad would say, I can't afford it. End of story.
But the rich dad apparently wouldn't let them say that.
No. He insisted on asking, okay, how can I afford it?
Which seems like such a small shift.
But the sources really emphasize how it changes everything. It's about problem solving, not just shutting down possibilities.
Yeah, I can't afford it is like a mental full stop, isn't it?
Totally.
Whereas asking how gets the brain working, looking for pathways. The rich dad apparently compared it to, like, physical exercise.
Exercising the financial mind.
Exactly. The more you flex that muscle, the stronger it gets at finding solutions.
Okay, so let's dig into some more of those contrasting attitudes you flagged. Taxes, for instance, that's always a big one.
Oh, yeah. The sources show the poor dad holding that, fairly common view. The rich should pay more taxes to help everyone else out.
A kind of Robin Hood idea.
Sort of. But the rich dad saw it differently. He argued that taxes often end up penalizing the very people who are producing wealth and jobs.
Two very different viewpoints presented there.
Absolutely. And it's key to remember these are different perspectives presented in the sources. We're not taking sides, just exploring the ideas.
Right. Understanding these viewpoints helps explain different financial strategies people might take.
Definitely. And it extends to career advice, too. Remember the poor dad's advice.
The classic path. Study hard, get good grades.
Find a safe job with a good company. Secure.
Yeah. But the rich dad.
His advice was almost the opposite, wasn't it? Study hard so you can find a good company to buy.
Wow. That's shifting from employee thinking to
owner thinking. Completely different mindset about your relationship with corporations and work itself.
It really is. And even how they viewed kids and money.
That was quite stark.
The poor dad saying something like, the reason I'm not rich is because I have you kids. Ouch.
Yeah, that's tough. Whereas the rich dad apparently used his kids as his motivation.
The reason I must be rich.
Exactly. A driving force, not a barrier. It's a complete reframing.
And other things too, right? Like whether money was discussed openly at the dinner table or if it was taboo.
And their approach to risk. Play it safe versus...
Learn to manage risk. Big difference. So this mindset foundation seems absolutely crucial. Then the sources jump into some early stories, right? That toothpaste tube business.
Oh, that's a wild one. With his friend Mike.
Collecting old lead toothpaste tubes.
Melting them down over a hibachi grill. Can you imagine?
And making nickels out of them using plaster molds in milk cartons.
The sheer ingenuity there, as kids. It's pretty amazing. Shows that early entrepreneurial spark.
Even getting evicted by his mom when she found the lead melting operation. A real-world business challenge.
Exactly. Resourcefulness, production, even setbacks. All there in miniature.
And then that leads into a really key moment.
Yeah.
The rich dad's no-pay lesson.
Right. Kiyosaki starts working for him expecting, what, 10 cents an hour?
Yeah, something tiny. And the rich dad just doesn't pay him.
Understandably, Kiyosaki was pretty upset. Felt unfair.
But there was a deeper point, wasn't there?
The rich dad wanted to break that link in his head. Hours worked equals money earned.
He didn't want him working for money.
Exactly. He wanted him to start thinking about how to make money work for him. A fundamental shift away from the employee mindset.
And didn't they take a walk where this got explained further?
Yeah, the sources detail that. Rich dad pointing out people working hard like Mrs. Martin or the softball players.
Working diligently, but maybe trapped.
Trapped in that cycle of working hard for little pay, clinging to job security, maybe not building real wealth. He was contrasting their unpaid work with that trap.
Suggesting that just relying on a paycheck isn't the path to independence.
Pretty much. It requires building or buying things, assets that make money, without you having to trade your time directly for it.
And this connects to that idea about fear and desire or greed. controlling people.
That's a powerful concept in the sources. People work because they fear not having money.
But then desire kicks in, they want nicer things, so they work more.
And they get trapped in the cycle driven by fear and desire, working for money instead of mastering it.
Because they lack, as the rich dad put it, financial education.
Exactly. Ignorance about how money really works allows fear and greed to take the wheel. Schools teach you a profession, but not how to harness money's power.
Which brings us right to financial literacy. The sources make a big deal about this.
Huge deal. Rich dad hammering this home, contrasting it with the educated poor dad's focus purely on academics.
It's not just reading and writing literacy.
It's financial literacy, understanding the language of money. There's that great metaphor used.
The Empire State Building one.
Yeah. Building a career without financial literacy is like building a nice little suburban house. Perfectly fine.
But with financial literacy.
You have the foundation, the knowledge to build something massive.
Yeah.
An Empire State Building of wealth. Because you understand cash flow, assets, liabilities.
Okay, let's get into that. Assets and liabilities. The rich dad's definitions are almost shockingly simple.
They really are. An asset
What's money in your pocket?
and liability.
Takes money out of your pocket. Simple as that.
It sounds too simple, maybe? Which is why the sources suggest it's often missed.
Yeah, traditional education focuses elsewhere, and accounting gets complicated.
But that core idea, does it bring cash in or take cash out? That's the key insight.
And it's about reading the story the numbers tell, right? Understanding financial statements.
Absolutely. The income statement, that's like the movie of your money over time, income and expenses.
And the balance sheet.
That's the snapshot.
Yeah.
What you own, assets, and what you owe, liabilities, at one specific moment. Understanding how they interact shows your cash flow pattern.
And the sources lay out different patterns.
Yeah, basically three. The poor, where expenses often eat up all the income.
Okay.
The middle class, where income covers expenses, they often buy things they think are assets but are actually liabilities.
Like maybe the house. We'll get to that.
Exactly. And then the rich, who focus on building up assets that generate more income than their expenses.
The sources use that example of the newly married couple buying a house. It feels like the dream, the ultimate asset.
It's the cornerstone of the middle-class dream for many.
But from the rich dad's perspective, described in the material,
It's often a liability, at least initially, because of the mortgage payments, the taxes, the insurance, the upkeep,
all money going out.
consistently out. Now, it might appreciate later, but in terms of immediate cash flow, it's usually a drain.
Which challenges how most people think about their homes.
Definitely. The rich dad's focus, according to the sources, was laser sharp. Acquire assets that put money in your pocket, period.
Which leads nicely into the next big idea, mind your own business.
And again, not about being nosy.
No, it means focus on your own asset column, making that distinction between your job, your profession,
Which provides your income.
and your business,
Right.
which is the collection of assets you own that generate income for you.
Right. The source uses the example of a banker. They work at the bank. That's their profession.
But they don't own the bank. That's not their business.
Exactly. Your business is your asset column. And the Ray Kroc story illustrates this so well.
The McDonald's founder, people thought he was in the hamburger business
But Kroc himself apparently said he was in the real estate business.
because he focused on owning the land under the franchises. That was his real business, his core asset.
A brilliant example of minding your true business, the assets.
And the sources argue that most people, the poor and middle class, spend their lives working for everyone else's business.
Right. Working for the company owner, paying the government via taxes, paying the bank via the mortgage.
All building someone else's asset column, essentially.
Instead of focusing primarily on building their own, it's a shift in where you direct your energy and resources.
The sources also caution about relying too heavily on net worth. Why is that?
Well, partly because of taxes. What you think something's worth and what you actually get after taxes can be very different.
And liquidity, I guess. How easily can you sell personal stuff for its listed value?
Exactly. Your fancy car's value on paper might not be what you get if you need cash quickly. Real assets are more about generating income.
So what counts as these real assets, according to the rich dad philosophy in the sources?
Things like businesses that can run without you needing to be there constantly.
Okay, passive involvement.
Stocks, bonds, income-generating real estate rentals, for example. Notes, like IOUs where people pay you interest. Royalties from intellectual property. Things that consistently generate cash flow into your pocket.
Got it. Those are the engines of wealth in this model.
Those are the things you focus on acquiring for your business.
All right, let's tackle taxes again, but from a slightly different angle, the history and how the rich approach them, according to your sources.
Okay, so we already touched on the differing views. Poor dad seeing taxes as fair redistribution.
Rich dad seeing them as potentially punishing producers.
Right. The sources then give a bit of history, how income tax started, often sold with that tax the rich or Robin Hood idea.
Tax the rich to give to the poor.
But historically, the sources argue, the tax burden eventually expanded and fell heavily on the middle class too.
Interesting historical perspective there.
And this is where corporations become really important in the rich dad narrative.
How so?
They're presented not just as ways to limit liability, which is common knowledge,
Right, separating personal assets from business debts.
but also as strategic tools for managing taxes. Corporations often have different, sometimes lower tax rates.
And they can pay for certain expenses before taxes are calculated.
Right, exactly. Using pre-tax dollars for legitimate business expenses.
Yep.
The sources frame this understanding of corporate structures as a major advantage for the wealthy.
So it's about knowing the rules of the game.
Knowing the rules and using the legal structures available. It's portrayed as a key differentiator, the informed versus the uninformed.
And that statistic mentioned is pretty sobering. The average American working 5 or 6 months just for the government.
Yeah, when you calculate all the different taxes, direct and indirect, it really adds up, puts the impact into perspective.
And the rich dad's approach, as described.
Proactive. Not just accepting taxes, but actively looking for legal ways to minimize them, like using a 1031 exchange in real estate to defer capital gains tax.
So using the tax code strategically within the legal bounds.
That's the idea presented, taking control rather than being passive.
Okay, so we've got mindset, assets, taxes. Now the sources talk about the biggest secret of the rich. What does that boil down to?
It really circles back to that first lesson. Having money work for you. That equals power and control.
Power over your own financial life.
Exactly. Financial intelligence, the sources argue, means you're less likely to be pushed around by an employer, by fear, by the tax system.
It contrasts sharply with the poor dad's advice again. Get that safe corporate job.
While the rich dad asked that provocative question, why work your way up the corporate ladder?
When you could own the ladder.
Boom! That's the essence of it. Thinking like an owner, not just an employee, aiming for security within someone else's system.
And Kiyosaki's own story fits here, working at Xerox.
Yeah, he was doing well, earning a good salary, but he saw how much was going out in deductions, felt the limitations.
The rat race feeling, even with good pay.
Right. And that pushed him, according to the material, to form his first corporation back in '74, even while still employed.
To start building his own ladder, his own asset column on the side.
Precisely. That first step towards financial independence, creating his own financial game instead of just playing in someone else's.
But okay, even if someone understands all this intellectually, financial literacy isn't enough, is it? The sources identify obstacles.
Yeah, 5 big ones that stop even financially literate people from actually building wealth.
What are they? Let's run through them quickly.
First, fear. Specifically, the fear of losing money.
That can definitely freeze people into inaction.
Totally. Second, cynicism. That kind of, it won't work, it's a scam attitude.
The difference between being a critic and an analyzer.
Exactly. Critics dismiss, analyzers look deeper, cynicism just shuts down opportunities.
Third.
Laziness, or maybe just inertia, not putting in the consistent effort.
That makes sense. Building wealth isn't passive, initially anyway.
Right. Fourth, bad habits. Poor spending habits, not saving, not investing consistently.
Habits can definitely derail the best intentions.
For sure. And fifth, arrogance.
Arrogance, how does that fit in?
Thinking you already know everything. Believing your lack of wealth is because of something else, not a lack of knowledge. It stops you from learning.
So fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, arrogance. Quite a list of potential roadblocks.
They are. Recognizing them is the first step to overcoming them.
Okay, so assuming we want to overcome those, the sources then lay out 10 steps to awaken your financial genius. Practical stuff.
Yeah, a roadmap of sorts. Should we quickly list them?
Good idea. 1. Find a reason greater than reality. 2. Make daily choices. 3. Choose friends carefully. 4. Master a formula, learn a new one. 5. Pay yourself first.
6. Pay your brokers well. 7. Be an Indian giver in the investment sense. 8. Use assets to buy luxuries. 9. Choose heroes. 10. Teach and you shall receive.
Okay, quite a list. Let's unpack a few. Number 1, find a reason greater than reality. The power of spirit.
This is about your why. Having really strong motivations, deep wants, and powerful don't wants that drive you forward, especially when things get tough. Kiyosaki shares his own personal drivers.
Makes sense. You need fuel. Step 2, make daily choices.
This emphasizes that your financial future is built decision by decision, day by day, how you spend your time, your money, and crucially, choosing to invest in your own financial education.
Like choosing to read a financial book instead of just watching TV. That story about the burglars ignoring the books.
Right? Shows where the real value often lies, even if thieves don't see it.
Step 3, choose friends carefully. The power of association.
Yeah, the idea that you absorb the attitudes and knowledge of those you spend time with. Surrounding yourself with financially savvy, opportunity-focused people can provide valuable insights.
Information flow from rich friends, basically. Step 4, master a formula, then learn a new one.
Don't try to do everything at once. Get really good at one way of making money, like that real estate foreclosure class example. Master it.
And then
Keep learning. Add new formulas, new strategies to your toolkit. Always be expanding your knowledge.
Step 5, pay yourself first. This sounds fundamental.
It is. Comes from the richest man in Babylon. Before you pay bills, before anything else, allocate money to your asset column. Build your future first.
Even when cash flow is tight.
Especially then, the sources argue. It forces discipline and prioritizes asset building.
Step 6, pay brokers well. Seems counterintuitive to some, maybe?
The logic is, if your advisors and brokers are well compensated and their interests are aligned with yours, they're more motivated to find you the best deals, the really good opportunities.
Okay, incentivizing good service. Step 7, be an Indian giver. Let's clarify that one carefully.
Yeah, it's used in a specific investment context here. It means aiming to get your initial investment capital back out of a deal as quickly as possible.
So your original money is safe.
Right, and then you own the asset. Maybe it's a rental property, maybe stocks, essentially for free, just collecting the ongoing cash flow or appreciation. Risk reduction.
Like the condo foreclosure or stock examples used. Got it. Step 8, use assets to buy luxuries.
This reinforces the goal. Don't use your hard-earned salary or borrow money for that fancy car or vacation.
Instead,
Build up your assets until the income from those assets can pay for the luxuries. Let your money buy them for you.
nice. Step 9, choose heroes. Role models.
Exactly. Find people who've achieved what you want to achieve financially. Study them. Learn from their successes and failures. Like the examples given, Trump or Buffett, very different styles, but much to learn.
Inspiration and strategy. And finally, step 10, teach and you shall receive.
The principle of giving. Share your knowledge. Help others. It often comes back to you in unexpected ways. Plus, teaching something is one of the best ways to solidify your own understanding.
Like smiling and getting smiles back. Simple reciprocity. Okay, those 10 steps provide a solid framework. But the sources get even more specific with to-dos, right?
Yeah, concrete actions. First one is simple but hard. Stop doing what isn't working.
Take an honest look and pivot if necessary.
Exactly. Then, actively seek new ideas. Browse bookstores. Look online. Find people who've actually done what you want to do and learn from them.
Networking, mentoring again.
Yep. Take classes. Go to seminars. Keep learning. And then, crucially, take action. Make offers.
Especially in real estate, the example given. Make lots of offers, even low ones.
That's the suggestion. You don't get deals if you don't ask. But always, always make offers with escape clauses. Protect yourself.
Smart. And keep looking constantly. Jogging through neighborhoods, driving around.
Be actively hunting for opportunities. Look for bargains everywhere, just like you look for sales at the supermarket. Look for bargains when the stock market or real estate market dips.
See downturns as opportunities.
Right. Look in the right places, too. Bankruptcy attorneys, courthouse steps, foreclosures, where motivated sellers might be. And importantly, start small. Don't try to hit a home run on day one.
Learn the ropes with smaller deals first.
Exactly. And those anecdotes really drive these points home. That house purchase story.
The $75,000 house bought for under $20K.
Yeah. Then quickly resold for $60K, holding a note for the difference. Creating value, or inventing money as the source puts it, through financial intelligence.
All in about 5 hours of work, apparently. Astounding. And doing that 6 times, creating $190,000 in assets.
It shows the scalability once you know the formula. It's not just theory.
And the condo bought for $50K next to one that sold for $100K. Just finding a bargain.
Pure bargain hunting. Being aware and ready to act.
Then that longer-term story of the tax lien certificate, starting with just $7,900.
And turning that, over years, through smart reinvestment in real estate and eventually mini storage into a college fund and then significant retirement income.
That really shows the power of starting small, being financially literate, and letting things compound over time.
Absolutely. These stories make the principles tangible. They show it can be done.
So, wrapping this all up, it feels like the core message from all this material you've shared is crystal clear.
It really is. Financial intelligence, that shift in mindset away from the poor dad limitations towards the rich dad possibilities, that's crucial.
It's the foundation for actually building wealth.
And escaping that rat race, the cycle of working just to pay bills, technically the mechanics aren't that complicated. Understand assets, buy assets.
Simple definitions.
Right. The real work often is mental. Overcoming that fear, the cynicism, the inertia, and committing to lifelong financial learning.
That's the bigger hurdle for many.
Seems to be.
So, a final thought then for you, the learner, listening to this. Based on everything we've explored today from your sources,
Right.
what's the one insight that really hit home for you? The one idea that sparked something?
And maybe more importantly, what's one small thing, one concrete action you could take now, today, or this week to start applying that insight?
Is it changing how you talk about money? Asking, how can I afford it instead of, I can't?
Or maybe dedicating an hour to research a type of asset we discussed.
Yeah.
Or picking up one of those books.
The journey starts with activating that financial genius the sources talk about. What's your first step going to be? Something to think about.